Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, step right up to the greatest show in philosophical history. Prepare to have your mind twisted, your reality questioned, and your way of existence doubted as we dive into the intellectual funhouse of Rene Descartes. This 17th century French thinker, he didn't just push the envelope, he folded it into an origami swarm and used it to write proof of his own existence. So grab your thinking caps or powdered wigs if you're feeling historically authentic, because we're about to embark on a Cartesian philosophical carnival, dramatic, but then again, so was Rene.
Drama queen.
So let's meet the man who decided to doubt everything except his own doubting. Rene Descartes was born in 1596 in La Haye en Touraine, France. Now, it's actually named after Descartes in his honor. Talk about a legacy. So young Rene was a sickly child who spent a lot of time in bed, which apparently is a great way to become a revolutionary philosopher. Who knew? So take more naps. And Descartes was educated by the Jesuits, which gave him a solid grounding in mathematics, theology, and scholastic philosophy. But our boy Rene, he wasn't content with the old way of thinking. He wanted to shake things up to find a new foundation of knowledge. It's like he looked at the entire edifice of Western thought and said, nah, let's start from scratch. So after a stint in the army where apparently he did more thinking than fighting, it's the equivalent of your kid picking flowers during the soccer game, Descartes had a series of vivid dreams that he interpreted as a divine calling to rebuild the edifice of human knowledge. It's like the philosophical equivalent of a superhero origin story, minus the bite from a radioactive spider. Now, interesting about Descartes is that he spent much of his adult life in the Netherlands, where he could think and write in peace. He famously liked to stay in bed until 11 a.m., thinking deep thoughts. I'm not sleeping, my eyes are just closed. So next time someone calls you lazy for sleeping in, just tell them you are engaging in Cartesian meditation, and that someday they will name your hometown after you. You hear that, Thousand Oaks? So let's get into his first big writing. This is what he's known for, Meditations on First Philosophy. So imagine walking into a room and declaring, everything I know might be false, and I'm going to prove it. And that's essentially what Descartes did in his magnum opus, Meditations on First Philosophy. It is part philosophical treatise, and then it's also kind of part existential crisis. So here are some of the key concepts in the writing. First, methodic doubt. Descartes decides to doubt everything that can possibly be doubted. It's like he's Marie Kondoing his entire belief system, but instead of asking, does it spark joy? He's asking, can I be absolutely certain about this? Spoiler alert, the answer is usually no. Number two is the evil demon hypothesis. Descartes imagines an all-powerful evil demon who might be deceiving him about everything. It's like the Matrix, but 3.5 centuries earlier, and there's a lot less leather trench coats. And then we have cogito ergo sum. After doubting everything, Descartes realizes there's one thing he can't doubt: his own thinking. I think, therefore I am becomes the bedrock of his philosophy. It's like he's saying, I might not be sure about anything else, but I'm pretty sure I'm having an existential crisis right now. Number four, clear and distinct ideas. Descartes argues that anything we perceive clearly and distinctly must be true. It's like he's given us a philosophical litmus test for reality. If only it worked for fake news and Elon Musk tweets. Five, trademark argument for God's existence. Descartes argues that the idea of a perfect God in our imperfect minds must come from God himself. It's like finding a Rolex, which this is not a Rolex by the way, in a dollar store. Something doesn't add up. And then six, mind-body dualism. Descartes concludes that the mind and body are separate substances. It's like he's saying we're all ghosts driving meat machines. Spooky. Now, this work was so revolutionary, it made scholastic philosophers spill their quill ink in shock.
Invisible ink.
But it wasn't just provocative. Descartes' meditations changed the entire landscape of Western thought, putting skepticism and the thinking subject at the center of philosophy. Now, he wasn't content with just doubting everything. Descartes decides to write a how-to guide for radical skepticism and rational thinking. Discourse on the method. It's kind of like the For Dummies book of the 17th century philosophy, except it might actually make you feel dumb at first. So here are some of the key ideas. The first was the 4 rules of thought. So Descartes lays out 4 simple-ish rules for thinking. First, Never accept anything as true unless you're absolutely certain about it. Second, break down complex problems into smaller parts. Third, think in an orderly manner from simple to complex. And then four, and your math teacher's going to like this one, always check your work thoroughly. It's like he's given us the philosophical version of measure twice, cut once, but for your entire worldview. And then he's going to come back again to the cogito ergo sum. Descartes rehashes his greatest hit, I think, therefore I am. It's the philosophical equivalent of a one-hit wonder playing their big song at every concert. Descartes was a 17th century journey. Third in this was the provisional morality. So while doubting everything, Descartes suggests we should stick to conventional morality to avoid paralysis. It's like he's saying question everything, but maybe don't be a jerk about it. And then we have mechanistic worldview. Descartes proposes that the physical world operates like a machine, and then it follows mathematical laws. It's like he's turning the universe into one big clockwork orange minus the ultraviolence. Now, this work had wannabe philosophers everywhere scribbling, I think, therefore I am, in the margins of the notebooks and trying to doubt their way to certainty. It is the philosophical equivalent of a self-help book, but with more existential crises. And then, after tearing down the edifice of knowledge, Descartes decides to rebuild it from the ground up in his Principles of Philosophy. It is his attempt to construct a comprehensive philosophical system. It's like watching a kid build an elaborate Lego castle if the kid was a genius and the castle was the entire universe. So some of the key concepts you're going to find, first is foundationalism. Descartes argues that knowledge should be built on indisputable foundations. We'll go with that. It's like he's the architectural engineer of epistemology. Insisting on rock-solid footings for the skyscraper of knowledge, he is saying to the workers, go deeper. Two is rationalism. He emphasizes the power of reason to discover truth, as opposed to empiricism's reliance on sensory experience. It's Descartes' way of saying, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Three is innate ideas. Descartes believes that we're born with certain ideas, like the concept of God or basic logical principles. It's like he's saying we all come with some pre-installed philosophical apps. And then dualism, which is going to come up again. He doubles down on the separation of mind and body. It's still ghosts in the machines, but now with more mathematical precision. And then we go into vortex theory. Descartes proposes a theory of planetary motion based on swirling vortexes of subtle matter. It's not his best work, but listen, even geniuses have off days. Now, this book is like Descartes' attempt to write kind of the user manual for the universe. It didn't quite work out, thanks Newton, but it's an impressive effort nonetheless. Now, Descartes wasn't just a one-hit, one-trick pony. He had plenty of other intellectual rabbits to pull out of his philosophical hat. First is the rules for the direction of the mind. Think Jordan Peterson for the 17th century. It's an unfinished work where he lays out the 21 rules for thinking clearly. And then we have The World, a work on physics that Descartes decided not to publish after hearing about Galileo's troubles with the church. It's like he decided to, I'm not going to ghost the scientific community. I don't want to get into all that drama. And then we have Passion of the Soul. This is Descartes' foray into what we now call psychology. He tries to explain emotions in a mechanical way. It's like trying to explain love with a flowchart. And then we have Le Géométrie. It is an appendix to the Discourse on the Method where Descartes essentially inverts analytical geometry because, you know what, revolutionizing philosophy wasn't enough. He had to go ahead and try to change mathematics as well. So there you have it, Rene Descartes, the philosophical acrobat who balanced on the tightrope of doubt over the abyss of uncertainty. His ideas have been debated, critiqued, and built upon by philosophers for centuries. Some love him, some hate him, but everyone agrees Descartes' intellectual circus changed the game forever. His influences is like philosophical pollen in the springtime air of modernity. It's everywhere, often invisible, and occasionally makes people's brains itch. He has been called the father of modern philosophy and continental rationalism. He is the pioneer of rationalism and the guy who made I think, therefore I am into the live, laugh, love of the philosophical world. His ideas may seem abstract, but they've shaped everything from modern science to how we think about the consciousness and even artificial intelligence. So keep flexing those mental muscles and don't forget to doubt everything except maybe you're doubting. Descartes would want it that way. And next time someone says to you, "Who do you think you are?" you can confidently reply, "I think, therefore I am. Whoever I am," and then stare off to the distance pretending to have an existential crisis.